To cap this off, I'm very, very pleased to be able to bring to the stage someone who has been the first female engineer at Google, who joined, I believe, in 1999 or 98, I think it's 99, Marissa, who is now in a new role as VP Consumer Products and in charge of location, among other things. So please join me in welcoming Marissa to the stage. Welcome. You can sit here. You know, I had it all planned out, Marissa. I was going to, you know, I had all these questions lined up. I'd done all my research. I was up all night worrying. And then you go and announce something like 37 minutes ago. So can you please tell us what you just did?
Well, we're doing a small experiment, and we're doing it here in Austin because of South by Southwest, as well as.
But Google doesn't do small experiments. It's Google.
And so we, about a month ago, we launched check-ins as part of Google Latitude on Android, and built into that, there's an element of status. So when you're checking in, you can move up to regular, VIP, Guru. But in addition to having those levels, we've also worked with local businesses here in Austin that when you check in, you start to get essentially coupons or deals. So you can get, you know, a free drink at Tony's Pizzeria if you check in a certain number of times. And so that would be a fun place to try it out.
So you're launching, at least in a limited form, deals and incentives to level up, so to speak, in Latitude and
These are around loyalty offers, though. These
right.
aren't things like prepaid vouchers
right.
and some of the other things that are in that offers group right now. But yeah.
Well, this is Google entering the deal space.
I think that this is Google entering the check-in space and really giving our users a way of reaping the rewards of checking in.
I'm really glad I had Foursquare in the morning and not now, so you guys didn't have to have a fight in the back there. But I guess I'll ask you what I just asked Facebook. Is, you know, should Foursquare be concerned? Should all these other guys be concerned? Or are these going to be partners? Or are you like, well, we're Google and we're doing this, so get used to it?
Well, I think that we have Google Maps, which has been just a real runaway success for us, and we're really excited about it. And there's a lot of things that we want to do that are approximate to that. That said, a lot of these other companies are doing just great work. I mean, Foursquare is a great company, and you know, I really love their product. And so I think there's space for a lot of players.
But you're Google. Well, it's just big news when you do something like that. So I thank you for doing it before you came on, and I know that you're giving a talk tomorrow where you're going to go into it more. So everybody, if you're staying for South by Southwest, I think we're competing for a time slot at 3:30. I think you're going to win. So let's back up for a second. You have been in Google for over 10 years.
Yeah, 12, it'll be 12 in June.
12 in June, right? 12 years in June. And for most of that time, you were sort of the almost the guardian of the UI. You know, you had search, which was the core product and still is the core product at Google, and that's a major responsibility. But beyond that, you had 2,000 product managers, and you ran kind of a big empire. But you were really the person who, it seemed, made sure that things worked from the point of view of the consumer. That was, you were the gatekeeper to what pixel got on that search page. But you recently changed jobs. Can you tell us why?
Sure.
And what it is?
I was working for a long time on search, had some side projects in addition, but really focusing on the product management and user experience side of it. And in October, I switched jobs to work on maps and local and mobile, because I just think, especially with the rise of mobile, there's just so much more that's available now in terms of what we can do with location. And so all the classic things you'd expect, like being able to find a local business or you know, do operations on a map. But there's all kinds of other exciting things, I think, that are approximate to the search space. So there is some amount of crossover, because I think that location and context are going to become increasingly important. And with smartphones, we actually can have a lot more location and context-enriched experiences. So everything from, if the user gives you permission to have a little bit of their location history, you can know, is this the first time someone's here, or you know, have they been here every day? If they're here, you know, this is the first time they're here, give them information about it. Give them information about, you know, what they're looking at, what the landmarks are, where to go. If they're here every day, give them the news, give them their email, give them updates, right? So you can basically really do a lot more by just understanding even a little bit more context. And phones are really the way into that.
Right.
So I just saw something that I thought was really interesting and intriguing happening. And the team.
Well, it's
Now
not
I'm doing product and engineering, so that's also a new challenge
It's not like
for
there
me,
was
and
a
it's really
job
fun.
board and it's like, we need a head of location and hey, would you like to apply, right? I mean, how did it come about that you moved over? You know, I mean, because it's a big deal to, you know, it was a huge story when it happened last fall, and people were speculating, does this mean that Google has changed its focus? Is search no longer important to the company? But, you know, so did you go to Eric and Larry and Sergey and say, I need to do this, or did they come to you and say, you need to do this, or how did that happen?
Well, I think that search is our core, and it always will be. But basically, when I saw it happening in all these trends around location and mobile phones, contextual, what we would call contextual discovery or search without search. Right? What can you figure out a person needs without them even having to ask?
Eric talks about that all the time.
And so I think that that was increasing in priority. And I saw with a lot of different trends a chance to really try and build some very interesting products. And so it was a new challenge for me, and it's been really exciting and fun. I've gotten to learn a lot. I've got a great team, and so it's been a good change.
Well, one of the things, I mean, it's very clear from the day's conversation that a critical piece to location and to local is what people understand to be social, right? And it's connecting to people, connecting to businesses, connecting to the sort of past data stream of people who've been there before, so you can learn from what they've learned, and so on. And with Google, social has always been something of a mystery. People say what, and maybe another way of putting it is some people would say that social is Google's Achilles heel, that the company doesn't get social. How do you respond to such a statement?
I think that social is really important, and I think that it's something that we continue to work on. We've been making recent changes to things like social search, to try and understand who people are connected to, how to get them the right expertise, be it from a friend or from an expert in that area. And I think that we're going to continue to make advances there. But I think if you look at the web overall, in terms of big platforms, there's search, there's video, there's mobile, there's social, and we've done pretty well in about 3 of those 4. And so, we haven't quite gotten there yet on social, but we're still working on it.
So what I've noticed is, and it seems to me that you can either validate this or tell me you're not going to tell me, but Google has sort of incrementally integrated social into lots of things, as opposed to having kind of one big, here's our social play, right? Well, you did that with Orkut, and it worked out really well in Brazil. But it didn't kind of win, I guess you could say, overall. It was a great service, and everyone got excited for a while about it. But Facebook kind of won that round in terms of being the social graph. Is Google still going after owning the social graph, or is it more that you want to integrate social into all the products that you have?
I think that social is really important. Much like the shift that we saw, if you look back at sort of 1995, the web was so small you could classify it into folders. And one of the curves that
was Yahoo.
And one of the curves that Google rode was that as the web got larger and larger, you couldn't keep classifying it into folders, and you needed a tool like search. Now the web has gotten so big that even search, you kind of want the context of, wait, have my friends read this? Does someone I know endorse this? You want another level of opinion, even on top of that great search tool. And so we know that social is really important, and it is something that needs to be a part of our products.
All right. So are you or are you not going after the social graph?
Well, I think in some of our products we already have it.
You have.
Gmail is one of the richest sources of contacts on the web. So we do have it to some extent, and that's one of the things that our social search is already leveraging, is looking at contacts.
There was a bit of a back and forth with Facebook and Google around importing and exporting of contacts in Gmail and Facebook, and Google basically drew the line and said, we're just not doing this anymore because you guys aren't playing by fair rules. Can you explain that position?
Yeah. Well, I apologize because I think it's a little bit of inside baseball.
Well, we're all in here. We're all in here. Pitchers and catchers. The reported spring training is going. We're ready.
But basically, we've always had the philosophy at Google that the users own their data, and if they want to take it with them at any point, they can. This is why we have things like the Data Liberation Front. And so we always have had it be the case that there was an easy way to export contacts. And we saw that happening, but there were some players on the web, Facebook is the largest and most notable, that were very happy to come and use our programmatic interface to take our contacts and use them on their service and do that for the user, but didn't have reciprocity. You couldn't go back the other way. And we basically, at some point we said, well, wait, the reason we have our philosophy of openness is, one, to look out for the user, but two, to just overall increase the quality of the open web and those open standards. And unless someone says, okay, look, we're not going to be open unless you're open back with us, you don't ever really achieve openness. You just fuel closed platforms because they take the data in and none of the data comes back out. So we basically said, look, we're very happy to continue to be open. You can still actually download the contacts manually, but if we're going to do the programmatic interface and allow a service to download contacts on behalf of the user, we need to have that programmatic interface back. And so we basically said, we're not saying no, we're just saying that if we allow that transfer to happen, those are the terms.
So far, it's been crickets on the other side, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, well, tell me how your role relates, because it is so important to Google. I mean, probably as long as we're talking about open, we should talk about Android, because I think that there's a marked difference between Android and iOS, Apple. They don't come to conferences, just so you know. It's not like I didn't ask. But Apple has a different philosophy from Android. How does your role relate to the Android group in Google?
Well, Android is this amazing platform, and it now runs on smartphones, it runs on tablets, and my group is more on the application side. Google Maps for mobile is our largest mobile app and our largest Android app. We now have more than 150 million active users of Maps on the phone.
Yeah.
And so that's been just a big runaway success. And a few of the other things that I'm talking about around contextual discovery and some of the new experiments we're running, like Google Latitude and Google Hotpot, are things that are really successful on the phone. And so it's the application layer and some of the applications that deal with location and context.
I'm curious, because I think the Maps is a really interesting point of view. You said about 150 million?
Yep.
And how many are Maps users here? Right? I mean, we're all Maps users. Maybe you've done this and I'm just a moron, but which is entirely possible. But why not integrate all that other stuff I don't quite understand? Hotpot, Maps, Boost, Latitude. I mean, excuse me, not Maps, but why not integrate all that other stuff into Maps and sort of make Maps my Google social, local, mobile experience? I
think we do have an issue right now that some of our products should be features. And so I think that Google Maps is obviously one of our big products, and things like Latitude, in fact, are features. When you're on Latitude on Android, you see your Latitude friends.
Right.
And our Places app, in fact, is actually the same application, just with a different
right.
launch point into it.
That's what I want to bring up to you. You are like the UI queen, right? And you're coming into a space that I think we've all agreed over the course of the day is insanely exciting, but somewhat fragmented and difficult. And certainly does not have a consolidated UI. Is that something that you're interested in working on?
I do think we need to take some of our products and actually make them features. And I think that things like Latitude and Hotpot, to the extent that they're successful, Hotpot's obviously just getting started, makes sense to make them features. That said, I do think that you really have to look at it from use cases. And there's a clear use case for Maps, but there are some use cases where Maps may not be the first thing you'd reach for if you had that question, right? Which pizza places deliver where I am right now? I guess you, in theory, could answer that question using a map, but it would be kind of odd, right? It's more of a search problem. Okay, I wanted to go to this restaurant, I can't get in. What other restaurants nearby are like this one?
Yeah.
Those are the types of questions where I guess again you could probably
get into Maps. I spend so much time in Maps.
But I do think that it may just be something where there's just two different ways of looking at it.
Right.
And so they probably will have similarities across the two, but it's just a matter of what was the use case, what caused the user to go there, and what are they expecting.
So can I, perhaps on behalf of the audience, ask, what is Hotpot?
So Hotpot is our rating and recommendation engine. So you can rate local businesses.
So that's Yelp.
We have it on the phone. Yelp also does reviews. Hotpot is actually much more about just ratings, fast ratings. Give it 1 through 5 stars. There's also a 6-star if it's one of your favorites ever. And the nice thing is, in exchange for those ratings, what we can do is we can come up with really good recommendations. You can actually, there is a social component to Hotpot. You have friends on Hotpot, and based on their recommendations, based on their ratings, and based on the ratings of other people like you, we can actually come up with a pretty good list of places that we think you might like.
Got it. Okay. I want to sort of pull back for a second and maybe, again, tell me if this is a bit unfair, but mobile advertising is a really important piece of the whole equation, and I'm sure as you look over all the products that you're now responsible for, how they work on behalf of marketers is really important to you. Can you talk a little bit about Google's sort of philosophy or approach to mobile marketing and how that informs what you're doing now?
Sure. Well, so at least in the local space, what we are doing is we have two products, Tags and Boost. And so tags are a way of adding something to your ad. So you can add an update, you can add a picture, a menu, a video, and that's a flat fee per month, so it's $25, and it's sort of an entry-level product, $25 a month. You add that, and that shows up everywhere that your business shows up. Boost basically says, okay, look, I really want to have my business be at the top when people search. And it's basically, Boost is AdWords, and it actually uses our AdWords API. It's a really nice, elegant implementation of that, where with just 3 clicks, you can just say, okay, I don't want to configure all my keywords. I don't want to configure my budget. Just do something that's reasonable for me. Boost figures out what that is, makes a proposal. You just say yes. And so that's
sort of a way
pricing.
to get into the mobile channel.
It's variable pricing, and Boost works on both the desktop as well as in the mobile space.
Right. Now, again, this is, I'm guessing, not necessarily your responsibility, but within the Android marketplace and within the mobile marketplace broadly, Google has a very important and large ad network. You purchased AdMob,
yeah,
and you've integrated. It's on its way, or it may have surpassed, or at least it's on a run rate of over $1 billion. I've heard.
That's right.
So that's not a small undertaking. So I guess that's going well.
Yeah, mobile's going really well, and again, there's a lot of crossover there with local, because what people search for on the phones is largely local. But there's a lot of different ways that we're looking at how can we pull in ads that really help people when they're on the go.
So if I were to just, when I say this, tell me what comes to mind immediately. Apple.
Beautiful products.
You are such a politician.
I mean, I do think they just make beautiful stuff. I mean,
well, they do make beautiful stuff.
Now that I realized that I was at home with somebody last year, and I was like, wow, I'm like almost all Apple all the time. Like, I have my Android phone, but I've got an Apple laptop, Apple computer in my kitchen, an Apple TV on my television sets. Like, I just think they make beautiful stuff that just really works. I do have an iPad, but at the point when I realized this last year, they weren't out yet. But yeah.
You probably won't have that for very long, is my guess, with the Android tablets coming along. But all right. We're going to have time for questions, so please bring the mic up, because I want to make sure that we have time for that. I want to ask you a little bit out of the location space, but just because you're such a vet at Google, and it's very rare that we get a chance to talk, and I wanted to ask you. There's been a really major transition at Google as well. Recently, I saw Eric at the IAB conference. I think it was last week. I can't remember. It was the first time I had seen him as executive chairman, as opposed to CEO. And we briefly chatted about what it means for Google and the sort of streamlining of decision making. Now, you're very close to all the three, the triumvirate, as it was, the troika that made decisions at Google. I know that Larry doesn't officially take over till next month, but have things changed?
Well, I think that this is a big transition, and there's been a lot of focus on faster decision making, more velocity overall as a company. And because, as part of the transition, there was a lot of discussion about that, a lot of that has carried over, and we're looking at, how are we going to make decisions, right? How can we really get that heart and soul of a startup that we've always had? Like, how can we get that, amplify it throughout the entire company, and really get a lot more velocity? So I think we're all happy with how well Google's executing, but that said, there are pockets where things move a lot faster. There are pockets where things move slower, and we want to have that kind of uniform high velocity across the whole company.
So is it really that, because I mean, I can't imagine knowing Sergey not very well, but enough to think that he's not involved, right? So how have things gotten faster? Is it that Eric just doesn't have to be in the meeting anymore?
Well, and actually, Sergey has gotten more focused. He has 3 special projects that he's working on, and so he's been very deep in those. And I think that, in large part, they really do want to have Larry. Obviously, they're there. He can consult with Eric and Sergey, but he is the decision maker, and trying to have that clarity of speed and thinking, I think, is important.
Please, okay, just make sure. Are there questions yet? Because I have one more. I just want to. Okay, you have one there. Okay, great. I want to ask you because Eric, prior to turning the CEO reins over, and still now has said quite publicly how acquisitive Google intends to be, and how acquisitive you've been. Besides marketers, this room is filled with startups. We had 13 or 14 startups present today. Is this something that you're going to be doing as well in your space?
I think so. I mean, if you look last year, I mean, now Google's large. We're in a lot of different areas, and we see a lot of great talent and a lot of great ideas out there. It's a natural way for us to grow, is to look at and find products and teams that are aligned with what we're doing. And last year we bought almost a company a week. If you look back, I think it was 40 plus. It was almost 50 companies last year.
Yeah. So what are you looking for?
I think you look for teams that have really good ideas that, as I said, are adjacent or complementary to what we're already doing, and then you look for teams that can really execute. Yeah. Because execution is very important.
Right. We have a question in the back here. Oh, we have a mic in the back. I thought you said you had a question ready to go. Over here.
All right, I was going to do this as the second question, but I'm comfortable given we're in Austin, Texas. Registered Democrat. I just wanted to find out one of the highlights of having President Obama for dinner.
People, in case you don't know, this was actually on my list too. Marissa did host President Obama at your home in San Francisco, if I recall.
In Palo Alto, actually.
Oh, in Palo Alto,
the San Francisco Giants started doing extraordinarily well, and the Secret Service got worried about traffic. There was a playoff game that night.
I don't really have a problem with those Giants doing that well.
I would say one of the highlights is that there's just all these anecdotes. So actually, we got a call. The dinner was Thursday. It had been very quiet. We got a call on Sunday morning when they suddenly said, "No, we can't be in San Francisco." And luckily, my husband and I have a house close to Google, and so we were like, "Well, we're not really sure we can fit all those people in the house in Palo Alto," but we tried and we made it work. But the big thing is just the different stories that happen. So this is on Sunday they made this change. So they said, well, there's gonna be some people who come to the house on Monday morning. And so we got up. We were having breakfast at 7:30. That's when they were supposed to come. I looked outside and there was this growing number of people in black suits. And we live right across from an elementary school. So there's small children walking to school and this growing group of men in black suits out on this sidewalk. So I said to Zach, my husband, I said do you think I should go out and invite them in? Do you think they're just going to come to the door? Because at some point there were 15, then there were 20, then there were 25, and it was edging on 30. There was this growing mob of guys in suits on the sidewalk. So I finally opened the door and said, hey guys, do you want to come in? They were waiting for 2 more people. So they came in, and the first man I shook hands with said, hi, I'm the rooftop counter sniper. I said, wow, does Mr. Rooftop Counter Sniper have a name? And so I was that's kind of an interesting week when your Monday morning at 7:30 starts off with that introduction.
Does the president relax when he's in your home? Is he off his sort of public face? Does he have a couple drinks and hang out?
This was in October, so this was right before he. All the elections. So it was a smaller setting. It was much more casual, I would say. So there were about 62, 63 people in total there. And the way it was set up was there were 6 tables of 10 with an open space at each table. So when the president came in,
there's a president's seat at every table.
Yeah, there was a president's seat at every table. And so he works his way through the room and spends about 15 minutes with each table talking about whatever they want to talk about, doing some opening and closing remarks. And so it was pretty casual. I mean, we have these kind of funny, almost surreal pictures of people, sitting next to the president and chatting with him. Yeah, but it was funny because there were all kinds of rules. Just rules you wouldn't expect, you don't even think about, or I didn't even think about, they had American cheese.
Right.
No cheese, no foreign cheese, right, no foreign wine, right, so all of those kinds of things, where, I'm not sure we would have served it anyway, but it was really interesting when we were planning the dinner, you got to sit on the phone with these people, and they're okay, here are the rules for the president's dinner, and and he doesn't get to eat anyway, because he's busy talking, so he actually, eats before and after,
Right, interesting.
Energy bars in the car, I guess, something like that.
Something tells me he gets whatever whatever he wants. Any other questions for Marissa? This is your opportunity. Oh, here's one down here.
I'm not sure if this applies to you, but I was wondering if you could comment on where education falls in Google's vision these days as a fuel to the rest of its products, obviously in apps, but in the world that can interwoven with yours.
I think that we intertwine with education in all kinds of places. I think apps is an obvious place where we are making available to schools all of our different applications, mail, calendar, all of those types of things. I actually think that one of the more powerful, I was at the TED conference last week, and I think one of the more powerful talks there was Salman Khan talking about the Khan Academy. And this is this entire educational framework of these 12-minute videos that are really engaging, really interesting. There's a bunch of schools that are actually starting to use those now as homework and as part of their core curriculum. And it's basically education happening on YouTube and in a totally different form. There's actually a few schools now that are assigning lectures as homework. And then the students do their homework in the class, where they can actually, they take their lecture at night, and then they've got the teacher there to work through problems with. So it's an interesting way of thinking, how can you really invert education? I think that YouTube makes all kinds of things like that possible. And obviously, for maps, geography, right, just getting a sense overall of the world, I think that Google Maps and Earth are a really big part of that, and they're really engaging. And I just think the view of what maps are today versus when we were kids, and how interactive they are and how engaging they are. And if you just want to say, well, wait, I wonder what that street corner looks like, right? Like you can just go there on Street View. Or I wonder what this looks like from above. You get the aerial view and the satellite view. And so I just think that there's just a huge amount of touch points across this. And education is also one of the things that Google.org is really focused on.
Google.org being
the charitable branch of Google.
Which is a significant enterprise within Google. One more question over here. This will have to be the last one, I'm afraid.
I was just wondering, is there concern in Google about coming up with truly original, new, innovative ideas? Obviously, in the search space you did, but Honeycomb, basically the iPad, the announcement you had today looks a lot like Yelp. Are you trying to find that next new thing?
We always are looking for the next new thing, and so I think we do. We try all the time to come up with new and innovative things. I think a lot of times important innovations are just small tweaks on an idea that might seem obvious, right? So there's an idea, there's something that's going well, but if you just change it a little bit, it becomes something really magical. And so we're always looking for things like that.
Well, I know you're busy, and you've got a speech to prepare for tomorrow. So, Marissa, thank you so much for coming and closing our conference.
Thank
so
you.
much. Right.